there is something that looks a lot like a civil war going on in Ethiopia at present. There is a war going on between Armenia and Azerbaijan as well. There's a ceasefire on at the moment, but I never trust those things. But the war in Ethiopia is different from the one in Azer and Armenia. Number one, because it doesn't seem to me like international powers are getting involved in the Ethiopia one yet. In the Armenia versus Azerbaijan one, well, Russia and Turkey are really getting into that one, intervening, hosting ceasefires and all that sort of thing. But Ethiopia's one out at the moment. Also, the Armenia-Azer one is between two different countries. Whereas the one in Ethiopia is a little bit more complicated than that. It's within the country, and it's the federal government attacking one of the states within that same country. That's odd. A lot like Washington sending fighter jets down to Texas and bombing the crap out of the place. You know, that sort of situation. That's what you've got in Ethiopia. And that's probably why they have the Second Amendment in America. We don't really need it here in Australia. But Ethiopia, my take on that, which is not the right take. You know, I'm no expert. I have a goddaughter who is an expert, and there are other experts too. Go and ask them. But my take on it, and it's a little bit influenced by my goddaughter because she educates me on these things. My God, does she know some detail. Yeah? And she has a depth of comprehension of these things too, the geopolitics, the politics, the cultural issues and all that sort of stuff. I've heard commentary from academics from places like Yale in America, and they don't seem to have the depth of comprehension that my goddaughter has because she's part of the community. That's a whole other story. But my take from what I've heard is that, well, it's complicated, and what I'm about to suggest is only one part of it. But I get this sense that it's a battle of constitutions, in a sense. The current constitution of Ethiopia versus an alternative constitution that someone like Dr. Abiy, who is the current Prime Minister of Ethiopia, would rather have in there. Now, the current constitution is tribal-based. It's a constitution, and I think I'm right in saying this, which respects the individuality of tribes. The tribes are very important, in the current constitution. I think there's a reason for that. You can, I don't know the detail, but there is one mob in Ethiopia. That's Australia speak mobs, because the indigenous peoples here refer to all their tribes as mobs, Okay, so there's one mob in Ethiopia called the Tigrayans, and for a long time they've been in the ascendancy, and I think they had a hell of a lot to do with framing the current constitution of Ethiopia. And unsurprisingly, because the Tigrayans have a very strong tribal identity, and unsurprisingly, the current constitution of Ethiopia supports or, is respectful of tribes. Why wouldn't Tigray want to be the architects of a constitution that respected tribal identity? Because they've got a strong tribal identity. I can't see anything wrong with that. But where the problem comes in, I think, is that there's another tribe called the Amharans. And I've spoken to, well, Tigrayans, and now they say that Amhara is not a real tribe. And then there's another tribe called the Oromos. They've got a strong tribal identity too, unlike the Amharans. So the Tigrayans and the Oromos seem to have a strong tribal identity. But the Tigrayans are kind of the elite tribe, and the Oromo are the downtrodden tribe. So I can't imagine the Oromos feel as important as the Tigrayans in the tribal system. I think they do feel like third-class citizens, right? But and if you don't think that matters, well, just look at Europe. When Germany felt disrespected after World War Two, after World War One, they went nuts. They threw up Hitler as their sort of chancellor, and the rest is history. And the same thing happened after Napoleon defeated Prussia. He made the Prussians feel like crap afterwards. Not important. And boy, did they come back with a vengeance. Bismarck in the 1860s, whatever it was. And then Bismarck did the same to the French. Made them feel like crap after he punched the crap out of them. And got his revenge. And then in World War One, it went the other way again. And then the Germans lost again this time, So you had the French winning, and then the Germans winning, Bismarck. And then you had the French and English winning in World War One. And each time they're making the other mob feel like crap. And it doesn't end well when you do that. Now, let's think about this. So with the current constitution of Ethiopia, it's tribal based. It's an ethnic federation. It's a tribal federation, isn't it? So it matters. Everyone's tribal identity matters. Now, the Oromo have got a lower tribal identity, so surely they don't feel that respected in this tribal federation. They would. I'm sure that the Tigrayans would make them feel like second-class citizens. Now, the Tigrayans, as I have always perceived, seem to be kind of elite in many ways. I won't go into detail, educationally and business-wise and all that sort of stuff, Okay, the Amharans, they're an interesting box of frogs, though. They seem to be not a real tribe. They're kind of an amalgamation of a whole lot of other tribes into a super tribe, which is, that sounds good, doesn't it, super tribe? But no, it's a watered-down tribe. Now, I think the Amharans have been trying to say, hey, we are very proud Amharans, and Amharans is a wonderful tribe, and we've had lots of emperors and all that sort of stuff, and we go back 3,000 years, which they do technically through the other tribes before they all amalgamated. It's like a bunch of footy teams all becoming one. The resultant footy team has the combined histories of all the little tribes. So as far as I can tell, the Amharans feel that they are greater than the sum of their parts. So the Amharan tribe, in their minds, is greater than all the individual little tribes that went into the Amharan tribe. Which might have been portions of Tigrayans too, and portions of Oromos too, But I think the Tigrayans, and I've heard this, deny them that cultural identity. The Amharans are standing up, I think, and saying, we are proud Amharans, and we go back to, Solomon, and all that sort of stuff. And given that their component parts, their component tribes do, then they do, I suppose. But when, and Tigrayans kind of say, nope, doesn't count. You can't just say Amharans go back and back and back and back. Tigrayans go back and back and back and back. We are quality. But you can't say Amharans are quality. It's watered down. And Amharans say, well, no, we disagree. We're an amazing tribe. And, most of the emperors in history have been Amharans because, they've all been one or the other of the component tribes that make up Amharans. So we are a super tribe, and we really are super. We're amazing. We're a powerful tribe that goes back 3,000 years. And I think the Tigrayans have been saying, no, you're not. You're nothing. As an Amharan, it's not even a real tribe. And I think, I personally think that's a mistake. If I was a Tigrayan, I'd be saying, hey, we Tigrayans are fantastic. So are you. because I wouldn't want to piss them off. What's the advantage in pissing them off? Give them the credit. Say, yeah, you're fantastic. We do that to people all the time. Hey, you meet someone who's a bit of an idiot. Say, hey, you're really smart. Well, we tend to do that. There's a good reason for it. It's smart. Because then that guy won't come and punch you in the nose, you know what I mean? But anyway, I do get the sense the Tigrayans have, lorded it over the Oromos a bit, because the Oromos are a bit downtrodden, and lorded it over the Amharans because they haven't got a real tribe. They've got a made-up tribe based on language, and that sort of stuff. I get the sense the Tigrayans have been doing that. Now, the Tigrayans are saying, listen, the current constitution is based on tribal identity, which it is. It's a federation of tribes. But the tribes are the first identity, and, being Ethiopian, which is the kind of federation, is, your secondary identity, your tribe first. And they say to the Amharas, listen, go back to all your individual tribes, because the Amharan tribe doesn't count. The Amharan saying we can't. It was all smashed up by history. Whether we like it or not, people like, I forget who they were, Menelik or whoever they were. They sort of said, no, you're all going to talk to Amharan, and you're all going to identify as Amharans and all that sort of stuff. And therefore, and they said, we can't go back to our component tribes now. Our only identity, possible, our only real chance at a tribal identity is, as Amharan. A little bit like African Americans, they got all their historical tribal identities smashed when they got sold as slaves over into America, and now they identify as black by the colour of their skin. And I'm sensitive to that. You can't tell them, go back to your don't identify as black. You can't say that. I say, they treat Africa like a country, the African Americans, and so I respect that, because where they actually literally came from, that's lost. And the Amharan's a bit like that. I'm sensitive to that. On a much smaller scale, and Amharan scale, But the current constitution does seem to make the Tigrayans feel really good about themselves, as a quality tribe, and makes the Oromos feel a little bit lower, a lot lower, and it seems to make the Amharans feel like not even a real tribe. Even if not technically in the constitution, I think spiritually, I think Tigrayans tend to say, listen, that's not a real tribe. It doesn't make the Amharans feel good about themselves. Anyway, one way or another, Tigrayans want the current constitution, the ethnic federalism, the tribal federalism. One way or another, they want that. And people who are Amharans and Oromos and everything don't. They want their identity to be based on being Ethiopian. One mob, and probably one language eventually. The Tigrayans say, no, we can't have that. Everyone go back to your own tribes. And they say, we don't want to. And the Tigrayans say, well, you should. And the Amharans and the Oromos, especially the Amharans, say, we can't. And then the Tigrayans will say, bad luck. You're not as good as us then. You're not high quality. And the Amharans say, you know what? We're going to, under the current constitution, we are kind of nothing and you are kind of something. So we've got a better idea. We're going to bring in a new constitution under which we are something and you are something and we are all the same thing, but nobody's nothing. I understand that. I do understand that. Now, the Tigrayans might look at that and they say, you want to make us all Amharan then, sort of. Yeah. Well, they say, all one Ethiopian anyway. The tribes aren't going to matter. Tigrayans say, we don't like that, because, we love our tribal identity because we've got the best one, you see. We've got the best one. We sometimes say that the others have, but we kind of know that we've got the best one. And the Amharans say, well, we're going to just make everyone Ethiopian. We're not too keen on this tribal business. And then at that point, I think the Ethiopians might be, the Tigrayans might be saying, well, we might just go our own way then, which is kind of what they've done recently by having their own elections. And the Amharans have sort of said, no. And they've sent the fighter jets and bombed the crap They've sent the federal fighter jets down there, which the Tigrayans, I think, have chipped in to buy, and bombed the crap out of Tigray and say, no, we're going to force this issue, The Tigrayans are kind of, feeling the pinch, I think, at the moment, a little bit like England felt the pinch when Hitler was going bang, bang, bang against them, because they made Germany feel like crap after World War One, and then England was getting the crap bombed out of them by the Nazis, by Hitler, and now Tigray is getting the crap bombed out of them by a different kind of Hitler, maybe, Abiy, the current Prime Minister of Ethiopia, is bombing the crap out of Tigray. And Abiy Ahmed is probably thinking, no, I'm going to make this one Ethiopia, and nothing's going to stop me. I think he's part Amharan and part Oromo or something, so there's a double whammy there. Maybe the Tigrayans have made a mistake over the last number of years by making it clear to everyone that they're the best. That doesn't kind of work in history. But having said that, given that Tigray are very strong on their own cultural identity, Tigrayan cultural identity, not an Ethiopian one, then maybe they've got the right to secede and form their own nation. And I think they've kind of sort of hinted that that's what they're doing. They had their own elections and all that sort of stuff. I think they're trying to break away, one way or another. And Abiy has said, sorry, not happening. Now, I don't know what the reason for that is, but it's really rare in the world that any country wants to lose even a square inch of territory. So that'd be probably behind Abiy saying, no, you're not seceding. You're part of Ethiopia by force. Now, morally, I sort of think that he should let them go their own way and be their own country, but very rarely does any country do that willingly. Any federal leader of any sort, that's not common. No one likes to do that. And there might be some economic reasons. That'd be a whole other podcast. Why won't Abiy let Tigray go their own way? Because that seems to be the issue right now. Tigray kind of trying to go their own way and break off or whatever, and he's trying to stop them, and I think that's at the bottom of this civil war, along with that other issue where there's one constitution in place at the moment which has got some pluses and some minuses for different people, but then there's this other constitution which is arguably better. It's one that the West would